Hi, Pat.
Hey, Brian.
How you doing?
Not too bad. It's Prodcast number 2. Are you ready?
Yeah, I think for the people out there listening, we came up with a name for the podcast.
And Brian is going to have to say this because I'm going to have a hard time the first couple times saying it. So, Brian.
Yeah, it's the Pryant and Bat Prodcast Hourn.
Prodcast Hourn. And why the Hourn again?
I don't know, it's Old English. It sounds a little fancier than just podcast hour.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point because what podcasting is missing these days is fanciful language. Mm-hmm. You know. And
also the Prodcast has a sexual energy to it that I really appreciate.
Prod, yeah.
And also maybe like a mysterious, like alien kind of energy. Prod,
know? Yeah. And, you know, that opens us up to a new range of topics that we would have never prodded before. Right?
All right. So, who are our sponsors again?
Our sponsors, I believe, unofficially, are LegalZoom.
LegalZoom.com. If you put in the promo code that is UMM.
No third M, just 2 M's.
You get 30% off all of death certificates.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I remembered wills as well. Those are important ones.
Yeah, wills too, and divorce
proceedings,
licenses, or whatever that shit is. And then, of course, brought to you always by optic-remix.com for all your sunglasses needs. That's actually a real sponsor. So, put in the... I forget the
Did you have that discussion again with them?
No. But it's still free advertising. And I work for them. So, I'm going to go ahead and fucking spell it out there anyways.
That can't hurt.
And then, who are the other ones again?
Zappos. Zappos on account of their box being in this recording area.
You put in the promo code Prodcast,
and you will receive shoes if you pay.
You will get shoes for life, free shoes for life
if you pay the correct amount, of course, which could run pretty expensive.
Legally, we can't be saying this, but you'll get free shoes for life. I don't care.
When this becomes an indictment, then we'll have to recut this intro. But that's why it's an intro, because it can be cut off.
Yeah, that's true. And then Bear Paint, it's BEHR, Bear Paint for all your outdoor painting needs. They're actually sending me a text message right now telling me to pull that for the podcast.
Well, it's good that we found out now, as opposed to later.
And
shall we begin?
That's about it. Oh, we have a new theme song.
A new theme song. I'm excited.
Pat's only heard 5 seconds of it.
5 seconds. Actually, not even 5 seconds. I think it was probably about 2.5 seconds.
Yeah, and we're gonna improvise throughout. There's no lyrical content
because spiritually we're
connected.
Of course we're connected, but spiritually, aesthetically, we're jazz musicians.
Yeah. Something like that.
We are.
All right, you ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do this. Podcast.
Approximately an hour.
Or sometimes more.
We have topics.
Lots of good ones.
We have discussion.
And shit. Podcast Hour.
Podcast Hour.
Pryant and Bat. Pryant and Bat. Pryant and Bat. Talk about the real shit up in this hood. Patrick, how you doing? Once again.
I'm good. That actually is very uplifting.
I know.
A very uplifting theme for our second podcast in history.
Considering that our topics are so dark.
They have a dark undercurrent, but we glaze it over with a nice, a nice layer of positivity. I think.
I think you know.
Yes, actually, I have to be perfectly honest, and I was completely embarrassed about the previous podcast because the amount of you knows that I uttered in that 85 minutes, I believe it was impossible. It was impossible. There were you knows that cascaded onto other you knows.
I think it was cacophonous and beautiful. I think it was like a gregarious chant.
I appreciate that. Oh, I just said another one. But you see, I was privy to a suggestion that once you've heard yourself doing these unconscious tics, you're more likely not to repeat them. So I feel like I've moved on.
Every single time I say I just feel like cutting myself in the bathroom.
Now we have to layer that negativity, that darkness, with some positivity.
Let's just play the theme again.
It's a good idea, but
what if the podcast was like 30 minutes of that song on loop?
It would be like 2-minute discussions and then a repetition of the song.
It'd sound like
it'd be an opera.
Sad comedian performance.
I don't know what to say to that.
So what are our topics for tonight?
Our topics.
I mean, I remember we wrote down some last time, but we kind of glazed over them really quick.
Yeah. Do you want to? Shall we revisit those?
Well, I wrote down the pyramids, and that's just it. That's all I wrote.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mention like how they're built or why they're built or even just fuck that. We could just talk about how cool they look or something. I don't know.
Well, start us off.
Pyramids are interesting.
They are.
They're a good shape.
They are.
I think they possess, the shape itself possesses a lot of power.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it on the back of a dollar bill.
That is true. So they're constantly present in our lives, which is important.
You learn about them in geology.
You do. I don't know if I ever did, but I'll take your word for it.
Or is that like triangles? Dude,
that's geometry.
Whatever. We don't promise anything enlightening in this podcast. We just stumble upon enlightenment.
Yeah, well, that's all you can do in this life. Stumble upon enlightenment, Do you think the 95 Theses, they just they were just there for, Martin Luther?
I wouldn't be surprised that we get inducted into the Illuminati like a year from now from this podcast.
We were talking about the Illuminati yesterday, right?
Were we?
About how unintimidating they are, even though they pretend to be?
I forget because I drink a lot of tall cans.
That's true. I do remember that. But what was I going to mention about the pyramids? Oh, it sounds cliche, but they have stood the test of time.
They have,
and there's something to be said for that.
Napoleon tried to do something about that.
Oh really?
He used them as target practice.
Really? Well,
yeah. If you look at the what is it called? This just the Sphinx.
Mm-hmm.
The Sphinx,
nose.
Yeah, the nose is actually it's a combination of wind damage,
mm-hmm.
but also they used it for target practice. Napoleon soldiers. So there's like a bunch of little small like musket holes from like ball bearings. And they would just shoot that shit up.
Wow, interesting. I didn't know that. And but even just the fact that it has survived all that kind of damage over the years, like that's it's incomprehensible to me, just because the amount of manpower and time that those things took. Ridiculous.
How long do you think the pyramids took to build?
I'm sure there's numbers on that, but it's numbers that again are incomprehensible to modern man. Because we can put up a skyscraper in 2 years. Where I'm assuming this. I believe I when I read about pyramids when I was in grade school, I remember something about how most pyramids took like 2 or 3 persons' lifetimes. So like two or three generations to build one. So
you think maybe like 2 weeks? Each pyramid?
Life expectancy was lower back then, I believe. But Egypt had a good thing going, in terms of their influence is pretty apparent even today.
They were ballers.
Back of the dollar bill.
They were ballers, and when they mobbed deep.
Is that a reference to something that I don't know?
I'm actually having a seizure right now.
Well, I'm glad that we caught it on the podcast so we can refer to it later. For documentorial purposes as well as medical.
Yeah, I could show this to my what is a doctor studies brains?
Neuroscience?
I could show it to my neurologist.
Yeah, I guess you could.
I don't know. We didn't go to medical school, people. We apologize.
No, but we'll try.
Well, all we do is prodcast.
We prodcast, which is
we prod for the answer.
We prod.
What we're doing.
It's a portmanteau.
So, you think it was only really 2 or 3 generations? I kind of tend to think that it took, each. I mean, I'm not even talking about the Great Pyramid. Mm-hmm. The Great Pyramid of Giza, but even the smaller pyramids, which weren't that small, they're still 5 stories tall. I still tend to think that each one took over 1,000 years to build. Yeah,
you're right. And it just makes me think of the 10 Commandments, the movie, mm-hmm. and mobilizing all these slaves, Moses included, I guess, to build, just to pull the one block, across, onto the platform to
mm-hmm.
One level of the pyramid, So if it took that rate, all 1,000 people just to pull one brick, that's pretty insane. And you're right. Maybe it would have taken 1,000 years.
By the way, not to go off topic, but could they have picked a less Jewish-looking man than Charlton Heston?
They probably could have, but I mean, that's a pretty good shot in the dark, for typecasting.
I mean, he's the most blonde-haired, blue-eyed, all-American, non-Israel looking.
That's Hollywood, man. That's how they transform. John Wayne, Genghis Khan.
That's true.
Come on.
That's true. That was good casting, though, I think. Just because John Wayne's, he's a bad dude.
Yeah.
And I think he can pull it off. I never saw it, but did they give him a really stupid, solid black mustache and beard?
Oh yeah.
Really?
They did. Well, I think they gave him the Fu Manchu.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to. What is it just called Genghis Khan?
I think so. I just know that he played Genghis Khan. I'm not. I've never seen the movie either, so I've seen still frames.
Wow.
But
I think you're just totally lying to the audience right now. That never happened. We gotta stay on. We gotta stay on track.
Sure.
We gotta stay on track of prodding for the answers, Pat. Not making up the answers.
But the whole process of talking through these things—that is the prod of the Prodcast.
That is the pride of the prod.
Pride of the prod. That's a good phrase. That's a good turn of phrase.
So, Pat,
mm-hmm.
you review music online.
Mm-hmm.
You work for a magazine. What is the name of that magazine?
It is, I believe you would call it Mixdown, but it's actually spelled mxdwn.com. So, Mixdown.
It's funny how you say that like you're guessing.
Because I am guessing,
Haven't you written 20 reviews now or something?
It's about, I think this is going to be the 10th, but it's a very casual working environment. So casual that I can sit in my underwear in my room and do it.
Now, do they ever throw you things that you wouldn't normally listen to?
Oh yeah, I think that's the kind of the incentive of the whole process is stuff that I would normally never listen to. And there hasn't been anything that I outwardly hated, stuff that I would probably never listen to again, but nothing that I said, this is terrible, I refuse to review this, please shoot me in the head or something.
Has there been anything that you absolutely hated but you reviewed it anyways? Like you just thought it was horrible while you're listening to it and while you're writing about it? or have you been kind of lukewarm about everything?
I'd say actually the first review that I did, I won't mention the band name because I don't like giving bad publicity, but it was just generic. It could have been Coldplay. It could have been Keen or something.
You just offended a lot of Keen and Coldplay fans right now.
You mean offended?
Whatever.
Because you said defended.
This is a Prodcast.
And I prod at you. I prod at you to make sure that you're saying the right word.
Well, your English degree is really paying off.
Well, it has to, But and that brings me back to the first discussion that what we started, I think, this discussion off on is my inability to recognize that I was saying thousands of times
That's
yesterday,
yeah.
And that really made me angry because as a human and more so as an English major, you pride yourself on words and your inability to control words that you speak. It's pretty scary.
Well, it was round one jitters.
It was round one. I'm sure it was, even though I wasn't too nervous. We're just sitting here. I know you.
Even Floyd Mayweather. I'm sure he was a little rusty first few times he fought.
Mm-hmm.
Is
that our segue into boxing?
It could be. I've actually really haven't watched too many Floyd Mayweather fights.
I haven't either.
But that fool's fucking badass. That's all I know. I've seen probably a total of like 5 fights. And he's just a little monster.
He's a little guy.
He just got out of jail too. I'm pretty sure.
So he's a little ex-convict now.
Yeah. But I think it was like battery or something like that on his wife.
Yeah, that tends to be the crime of choice for boxers.
You would think that boxers get all their aggression out
in training.
Yeah, in training and in the ring. All those months leading up to a fight. But if that bitch just doesn't make a sandwich right, she's gonna get popped in the mouth.
And that's the thing. They're these boxers, and Floyd Mayweather might be like one of the biggest current examples. He's that prima donna sports figure that is never told no.
Mm-hmm.
His trainers are yes men.
Mm-hmm.
He's got an entourage. No one's gonna say no to him, and the first person that does usually gets beat up. I just beat up myself for saying again.
I think we should try to string as many knows into a sentence as possible, and maybe it will exercise it out of your system.
Maybe, but I don't know if I can plunge myself to those depths of psychoanalysis.
I might be onto something.
It's a process. I agree, but we'll work as podcasters and as members of our audience.
Mm-hmm,
we'll work through it together.
I was thinking earlier today that we could try a segment where we do something. Since there are no cameras, it's pretty much off camera.
That's true.
Do something
naked.
It could be. But we could try something that the audience, they can't see it,
mm-hmm.
but they can kind of guess what's going on.
Okay.
Like we could be doing an action. It's almost like we're doing charades over the air.
Oh, okay.
Or I was thinking of maybe we could just have a staring contest.
Oh, I'm down for that.
You want to try it?
Okay.
Okay.
Are we going to be talking while we're staring?
No.
So it's just pure dead...
First one to laugh.
Pure dead air silence.
First one to laugh. Are you ready?
Oh, wait. Let me... Okay.
All right. On 3.
Okay, count us off, audience. I think I heard 3. Go.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have to guess who won.
You guessed correctly. That was me that laughed first. Honestly, I'm not very good at staring contests. I work with...
We're not very good at keeping viewers' attention. And why did I say viewers? Listeners. I'm sorry.
But we did have the listener interaction right now.
Yeah.
Which you don't get that from every podcast.
Not really.
Nonetheless,
They're
every
just-
podcast.
People are actually writing letters right now.
A protest?
Yeah. Saying how much they hate us.
I actually look forward to letters of protest and hate mail. I enjoy those things because they really even more than fan mail really reveal how well your show's doing, I think.
I think it'd be interesting to actually see a response from people that we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And
which I think it would be mostly people we don't know.
I think it would be great to just read all the comments about people or from people that just absolutely are like scathing, hateful reviews. Mm-hmm. I'd really like to hear those.
And lo and behold, we're in the perfect medium for those kinds of responses because
this is the
podcast. It is the internet.
This is the internet, and the trolls are prodding.
Not even trolls, just trolls obviously, but I don't know how I feel about that term, but you go on YouTube and just the most innocuous, I can't even pronounce that word. The most random video that you can find. It could be a music video. It could be a cat, rolling over in grass or something, and people just dispense with such venom. It's wild.
Or just complete randomness. Like it could be like a
overt racism.
A video of a guy getting attacked by a pit bull or something, and some guy would write, "Beat that pussy up."
Mm-hmm. It's like some sort of stream of consciousness that arose out of.
I think people are actually
a Rorschach test or something.
I think people are actually like exercising all the bad energy they experienced in their childhood.
So it's a
self-therapy.
It's a Jung exercise.
Who's Jung? Who?
Carl Jung?
I think it's pronounced Young.
Jung?
Yeah.
Jung?
No, I think it's pronounced Young.
It has a J in there.
Come on, Pat. How many books do you own? You don't have Carl Jung?
I do have a Carl Jung.
Or do you have a Jung?
I have a. I
know you have a Microsoft Zune.
What's wrong with that? It was a hand-me-down, but.
Now, do you say Sartre or Sartre?
I was actually listening to a book, an audio book that was about kind of biographical, elements of Sartre, and I heard it as Sartre, but a lot of people say Sartre, and that's fine. I think with so many different things in language, there's going to be multiple ways to pronounce it, especially names.
Sartre, at one point in his life, wrote a lot about satyrs.
I believe it.
And that didn't happen at all.
No, it didn't.
But if it did...
But I believed it.
And
that's what matters.
That would be an excellent blender right there. Mm-hmm. That if somebody discovered the notebooks of Sartre and he actually wrote about mythological beasts.
I'm actually pretty sure that he probably did, because according to this, what I was listening to, he was actually a pretty creative kid, writing novels at early ages and stuff. So I wouldn't doubt he delved into mythology, and later on delving into open relationships with
he delved into double
Simone de
penetration.
Beauvoir.
He delved into double penetration.
He might have. There were some pretty pretty scintillating stories.
He was the first to write about bukkake. At least in France.
Really? He was?
No.
Man, you're really believable when you say stuff like that.
I have a way about me.
But on the same token, stuff like that, you can see that happening. You could, if you say something convincingly enough, it seems pretty plausible, because someone like Sartre or Samuel Beckett, they could have written about these things. And I'm sure they did, but they're just not, as prominent artifacts as their more well-known works.
Mm-hmm. Well, on the same Tolkien,
So Tolkien. Did
I
say
just
Tolkien?
wanted to say that.
A
I thought that would be a good segue to something.
Now who's the English major? Pun master.
Man, my degree is useless. I don't even count it as anything.
And what is your degree again for the people that don't know?
Studio art.
Studio art.
Yeah. I might as well have made coloring books.
Yeah, but there's so many degrees that are useless, nowadays.
Neuroscience,
For
example. I mean, who cares about that shit? Chemistry. Who cares about fucking chemistry, bro?
Not me. Not me. Even though it's happening at all times.
On the same Tolkien. You think Tolkien? Do you think he would be embarrassed to know that there are so many dudes living in their basement, like listening to Genesis and like looking at blacklight posters?
No, I don't actually. I think you'd probably dig it.
Like, reading the trilogy or whatever, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and they're just like tripping out on shrooms and like just fucking getting into the groove.
Well,
like reading about Gollum's fucking journey and shit.
I honestly don't. I think he'd appreciate it because obviously if he wrote several tomes of this literature about this world, he obviously cared about it.
What if he was just pissed?
At who?
At all these like stupid hippie nerds.
It's possible.
Wasn't Led Zeppelin, they wrote a lot about Tolkien.
They did.
Tolkien stories. Isn't Ramble On about Gollum's journey in the Hobbits? Like going up the mountain or whatever and finding the ring?
I could see that as highly probable.
Well, because I'm pretty sure he mentions Gollum's... I'm pretty sure he mentions the name Gollum in Ramble On.
Well, you obviously looked deeper into it than I did.
No, I've just smoked a lot of weed back in the day and listened to a lot of Zeppelin.
Your research, air quoted.
Well, yeah, duh.
Is far more expansive than mine.
I think we're gonna have to ask your dad about that. I think for those who don't know at home, Pat's father has nothing but blacklight posters in his garage,
and he likes them. They're good, nice art.
And it probably like it's just coincidental, probably. I'm very sure, almost positive, that he's never done any drugs in his life.
See, I should have just mentioned that while we were having the staring contest. I would have won straight away.
Now, would you be opposed to having your dad on the podcast?
I honestly don't think he would be able to comprehend what a podcast is.
Yeah, or comprehend the word internet.
Yeah, he's still having trouble with that one. But a lot of people are.
Or computers.
He's getting there on that one.
Or like him wearing headphones. I think that might scare him.
No, he used to wear headphones a lot, actually, when he'd listen to music.
When he's listening to Genesis in his garage.
Yeah, because, the whole household doesn't want to hear Peter Gabriel going off.
Now, are you into Peter Gabriel Genesis?
I'm actually not into any Genesis, really. I've dabbled.
If you had to choose Phil Collins Genesis or Peter Gabriel Genesis?
I'd say Peter Gabriel Genesis, just because I can't really relate to, even though it was so prominent when I was a child, and growing up, I just can't relate to Phil Collins Genesis. I respect it, but I can't. I feel like I'm more in spirit with, as strange as it sounds, Peter Gabriel Genesis. And you?
I think I have to go with Peter Gabriel too, but I think it's for the fact that he's also a little Tolkien-esque, and like a lot of the like early Genesis songs are about like fucking gnome battles in the woods, and it's just absolutely stupid. Like it's
social commentary.
Not even social commentary. I'm pretty sure he's absolutely dead serious about elf battles in the woods. And like, if you were to ask him about it, I'm sure if you were to go up and be like, "Hey, Peter, man, like, You know, that's a really awesome story you told about fucking the Battle of Eppin Forest and the fucking goblins fighting the elves for supremacy. And he's like, dude, that ain't fucking a story that happened. It was real. Like, that shit fucking happened.
It was a documentary.
Yeah. It was documented through the song.
But on that same token, damn, you're gonna make that goddamn pun again. I have to appreciate people, artists that have that devotion to whatever topic it is, whether it is elven, gnome battles. I appreciate that. If they're willing to devote their whole life to making that statement, then that's all good. For me, I might not relate to it at all, or think it's strange and kind of just nothing I'm into, but I appreciate it, and I respect their ability to make that kind of statement.
I think Peter was just slamming acid, and that's the only explanation.
But how do you get someone like Syd Barrett who slammed acid pretty regularly as well?
I don't even remember what any of Syd Barrett's songs are about.
About bicycles. I've got a bike.
But that's like, I don't know. That's not very different.
How do you know?
I don't know.
Maybe that's you're just looking at the ground level meaning.
Fuck, I need to delve deeper.
You do.
I'm just looking at the surface, man.
Yeah, well, a lot of people do. And bikes are a very surface-oriented vehicle. They ride along the surface.
Dead air.
Dead air. Meaningful dead air. One would argue more meaningful than the staring contest. I've been looking at your shirt. What is your shirt of? I know a Prodcast is not very, it doesn't work well with visual elements, but Pryant has a very interesting shirt on.
It looks like a bunch of old fashion models from an old cut out from an old magazine or something, all black and white, like Jansen, swimsuit models or something like that. But this is actually, I guess I'm going to throw a shout out. This is actually my friend Brandon's company, and the company is called Party for a Living. Party for a Living. This is a Branville brand T-shirt.
I like it.
Shout out to you, Branville. What's up, dog?
Hi, Branville. You don't know me, but I appreciate the shirt.
Pat's actually had a crush on you for a while, Brandon. So I'm just letting you know. But it's cool. You're never going to listen to this, anyways. And that's partyforaliving.com, I'm pretty sure.
Sounds good. So, let's see. What topic do we have?
I think we got plenty of time. We've only been going for like 35 minutes. I feel like the second podcast is going a lot slower than the first. I think it might have to do with partially me being sober.
Yeah.
My transitions aren't as fluid.
Because there is no fluid going through you. The fluidity is...
I felt like water, like Bruce Lee, when I had a few tall cans in me.
But I actually feel I'm enjoying... I enjoyed yesterday too, but I feel like this one we're stepping up a level of professional quality that going forward is going to help us.
Pat, you're just talking bullshit right now. You're just trying to pump us up.
I
appreciate it.
I am trying to pump us up.
But I could admit when a podcast is failing. I'm just going to let the audience know right now that this is terrible. You should just stop listening right now. You're wasting your time.
But the fact that we're showing that they're wasting time.
People
that is groundbreaking.
People appreciate honesty.
Yeah, dog. But that's groundbreaking podcast territory. Telling people that they're wasting their time.
Man, you think that psychologically, when they hear that, they want to they want to believe in us and they want to keep going, like they want to
disprove us. They want to disprove us. They're like, there is a point to this podcast.
Yeah, there's It's like they can make it. They can dig themselves out of the hole.
Yeah.
Well, this is an underdog story.
You underestimate our audience. we are the powerful Russian, and they are the Rocky. They're going to overcome our dastardly, authoritative power over them, and rule the day.
I wonder if this goes back to Sartre at all.
I'm sure it does.
Or Satyrs. Or Genesis. We're just going to do a recap.
It's coming full circle.
We're just going to do a recap. We're brought to you by LegalZoom.com. Put in the promo code.
Can we play the opening theme again?
We very well could.
See, one of the things I want to talk about was laughter. What do you think of laughter?
What do I think of laughter?
Yeah.
This is getting deep.
Actually, tying it into Led Zeppelin, song remains the same. Does anyone remember laughter?
Is that one of the lyrics?
He says that in the middle of Stairway to Heaven. It was his little... in live versions of Stairway to Heaven, Robert Plant would frequently say, "Does anybody remember laughter?" But that's a tangent. My point is, laughter is such a weird phenomenon. You know, just the idea of learning how to laugh. Obviously, we copied it from each. You know, a baby copies it from their parents, but the first person, how do they laugh?
I think what's really interesting too is people who have different laughs and they have a characteristic laugh.
Yeah.
Like some people they snicker. Some people they giggle.
That's true. Some people don't even make any noise.
Yeah, it's almost like they're gasping.
Yeah, which is actually pretty interesting considering that I did a little bit. I wouldn't call it research, but I'd say maybe 2 minutes worth of reading about the subject, and some sort of PhD wrote an article about laughing, and he said that how he observed how chimps laugh, and he said that when you tickle their feet, they don't go ha ha like we do. They just kind of gasp for air. They like I'm assuming that's what he meant. And when I thought about that, I thought that makes sense. That makes sense because we change our breathing patterns when we laugh. So maybe laughing is just this fit of trying to not, die. You know.
Are you sure this researcher wasn't just a guy with a gorilla foot fetish?
He could have been, but that doesn't cancel out the research. It could be hard research, even if he has the gorilla foot fetish.
He's actually a part of like some bestiality ring in South Africa.
Why South Africa?
Why not South Africa? I don't know. Maybe because I know my bestiality porn. Duh.
I'll take your word for it. But again, and this kind of ties into what we talked about yesterday. Just because someone has a weird, strange fetish doesn't really prevent them from having hardcore research. Hardcore being the operative word.
Yeah.
If you look at like Charles Darwin, that guy made tons of research, and when you read the Descent of Man or any of his books, you see these really strange observations that he makes that aren't really scientific. They're just strange, but they're in the book, and I'm sure researchers at the time were just falling all over themselves to disprove it or congratulate him. Or
it seems to me like Darwin had a lot of time on his hands. I mean, who sits around and writes about animals?
Most brilliant people do.
I mean, that guy sounds like he just had no game at all. Like, that guy just never got laid.
Actually,
he just sat around and wrote about animals.
Actually, the Descent of Man, some part of it is, or a little bit of it, is him talking about how he met his wife and how, but it was the larger discussion was how we choose mates. But he was talking about how ugly he was. And
did you know that he actually never got married?
Really?
Yeah, and then he made all that up. He actually died a virgin. Yeah. Did you know that his middle name was Ung, too?
We're just rewriting history, man. If we were to write a history book and change everything ridiculously and then destroyed all other history...
You think, along the lines, like a few generations down, people have to believe it.
Mm-hmm, they would.
Maybe that's just how history has gone this whole entire time.
It's entirely possible.
Because we don't know any better.
History is written by the
winners,
we
find some... We can find some old tablets here and there. And who's to say that those tablets weren't altered by somebody else? So someone... the original tablets are like 6,000 years old, and somebody just like took a rock and scratched out some parts 1,000 years later.
Yeah, or even 10 years later.
Yeah. And so, the original, what am I trying to say?
Transcriptions?
The original transcriptions, exactly. Aren't the original transcriptions at all.
I think that's entirely possible, and probably what has happened with some history.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, history was written by the winners, the people that conquered. They're not written by, for the most part, they're not written by the people that were decimated, usually. So you're going to get, a skewed view of history that paints certain people in a certain light and certain other people in a different light. The conquered are obviously going to be stupid and primitive and all those kind of related adjectives. And the conquerors are going to be proud, strong, intelligent, and progressive,
the more I think about it, the whole idea of rewriting history has already existed even within the last century, like Nazi Germany, the propaganda machine. They rewrote history, and obviously the smear campaign of the Jewish population, that was basically they reprogrammed their whole entire country to buy into that, or pretty much, a very large percentage of Western Europe.
Yeah, and that's if it can happen with one, and Germany's a fairly large, nation. It's not Russia, but in terms of size, or China, but it's to do that with that many people. That's a pretty, it's an evil act, but it's pretty impressive nonetheless.
Your size is pretty impressive.
Have you seen it?
Well, I know you're a size queen.
I don't know how that's possible, but I guess it would be self-deprecating size queen. I guess.
Now, I've actually I never heard that term before you used it, size queen. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me like the
etymological?
The etymological reference point or starting point of that word, or how you came across it?
I came across it in much the way that a lot of people come across strange lingo like that, which is the internet. I don't remember exactly what website it was, but it might have even been just in a comment section of a YouTube video where someone was talking about how they needed a specific penis length to have sex with, and a response was probably, "You're a size queen," and I thought, wow, that is an interesting term. It's pretty loaded. Size queen.
No pun intended, right?
No, not at all.
Now, who's an example of a size queen?
Is this that's a leading question? Are you trying to lead me in a certain direction? Because I feel like you're trying to lead the conversation back into pornography.
So far, this podcast hasn't been the smoothest. So I'm trying to create some transitions here.
No, and that's fine. But
then again, it is leading in the direction of pornography, and we did talk about pornography quite a bit in the last podcast.
Yeah, we did.
Fuck that. Let's talk about, I don't know. Are we running out of topics?
Was there a topic that you wanted to go into?
Did Lance Armstrong really ride his bike to the moon?
We didn't broach that topic yesterday. So
no, but for those of you who may or may not know, Lance Armstrong Tour de France champion, like 7 years in a row or whatnot. Tour de France.
France champion.
He got his medals pulled.
Mm-hmm.
And he's no longer contesting the allegations of steroid use.
Did the audience notice that that excellent professional solemn tone that my co-host Bryant just took with that story?
It was very professional.
It was very professional. Like I could see that being read by. I could see you in a BBC sound booth somewhere.
Well, I was thinking about just doing a Bill Cosby impression while telling that little blurb.
That would have been that would have been a nice change too.
Lance Armstrong, the fucking the Tour de France. But yeah, what do you think about Lance Armstrong just completely just giving up? He's no longer fighting the allegations of steroid use, and basically, in a way, it's kind of validating the fact that he was using, performance enhancing drugs. Like him just giving up. You think he would want to fight to the bitter end and deny those allegations forever? Because after all, he's considered the greatest cyclist in history.
Yeah, you would think that, and I think a lot of commentators on the subject have made that point that you're running the risk of becoming going from the greatest cyclist of all time, without a doubt, just total dominance over the sport, to just a cheater. So you're running the gamut between these two extremes, and you could. So it makes sense that you would want to fight it, but then again, on the other hand, I don't know if I'd be able to stomach that kind of, indictment and crosstalk for years. Mm-hmm. I would assume that it's getting pretty tiring, and he's got bigger fish to fry. I think now he's doing cancer awareness and all these different charities.
Then again, though, he didn't retire very young. He was still in his early 40s. That was the culmination of almost half of your life dedicated to your profession, just to have all of it taken away, like all of the respect, all of the honor, the validity of your accomplishments taken away.
Yeah.
It just kind of sounds to me like he's just like, well, fuck it, I guess they either caught me, or I
don't care anymore,
or I just don't care anymore. You think that'd be weird? I don't know. I find that weird.
Yeah.
Like, you think you would be like, no, motherfucker, I've earned all of those medals.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess the easy answer would be he did cheat, and he knows that he's going to get caught.
I think
that's still a possibility. It's kind of an unsavory possibility.
I think it's official now.
That he did?
Yeah, it's official. No, we just discovered it.
Yeah,
right now.
Well,
Lance Armstrong, if you're listening to this, fuck you. You're a cocksucker.
Disgrace to America. And the U.S. Postal Service, whom you had emblazoned on your jersey.
And you never landed on the moon.
And you didn't die yesterday.
Yeah.
As reported.
This is all just a real big conspiracy theory.
Yeah. Involving the moon, France, and
aliens,
bicycles, and Stanley Kubrick.
Stanley Kubrick. Because filming Lance Armstrong crossing the finish line on the moon,
it happened on the soundstage in Arizona.
It's all an epic stanza of an epic poem.
From Tolkien?
Wow. What direction is this going in, Pat?
It's going in many directions. About? When we discussed this before the podcast came on, was that most podcasts are singularly focused, whereas our podcast, it's like an explosion in different directions. The physical movement of my hands are blowing up like a firework.
It's actually an explosion of people closing their web browsers. No longer.
But the fact,
it's an explosion of them turning off their iPods.
But I maintain that our ability to do that It's unparalleled.
You know, we left an impression though.
Yeah, we did.
We left an impression that we are terribly uninteresting.
So you're saying that these words, these breaths that we're taking, they're all in vain?
Yeah, pretty much. I think we should just kill ourselves. This is gonna turn really emo really quick.
It's actually taking a turn for existentialist. We're compelled to continue this podcast, even though there's no meaning. There's no meaning to this podcast other than continuing it because we have to.
This is very like self-inflicting punishment. This is almost Buddhist.
It is.
And it's cyclical because we keep mentioning Tolkien and existentialism.
And I have a feeling that we're going to end the podcast with the opening theme.
We might as well, right?
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea.
You know, for the listeners who don't know, I actually worked on that theme for probably about 7 months before it was perfect.
It was a vanity piece.
Yeah, it's a Bach fugue.
Mm-hmm. And
you know, it was that much care put into it.
And it took a lot out of you because I've seen the weight loss.
I was actually drained. I went to the hospital. They had to stick IV. They had to refill my body with fluids through IV. I was constantly vomiting bile.
And yet you drank 3 tall cans yesterday.
Yeah, well, I'm a trooper. I'm doing it for the audience here. You know, I don't think that they realize how much we care about them.
You put a lot into it.
That's why we get these secret promo codes for LegalZoom.com.
And
because
Zappos.
I know that a lot of our listeners are losers and they're probably getting divorces right now.
Because of the podcast?
Because of the podcast.
And that's unfortunate. But I think as we continue making podcasts, it's going to steer us in the direction of positivity. We're going to reconcile the marriages, our relationship, our personal relationship.
We actually, for those of you who don't know, listening, that Patrick and I actually give marriage advice. We give counseling. We write personal emails and give personal phone calls to all of our fans who enter in the promo code UMM.
Not the third M.
Yeah, not the third M. The third M, you don't want to put that in.
That actually charges you double.
Yeah. It's the secret fuck you over code.
Funny how these companies just insist on putting those in their system.
I don't know. I've never understood that.
No, it seems counterproductive.
Maybe it's just their marketing teams come up with that they can try to sneak in $1 or $2. You know,
yeah,
it's just the state of capitalism.
They
in
have
our country.
one foot out the door, and they're like, "I'm leaving this company, but I want to make them an extra couple bucks, so I'm going to program this code that will do that."
You know, and it actually prints out on your receipt, "fuck you," as one of the items. You know, it would be like, you know, personal legal advice, $30. Fuck you, $50. They just throw that in there.
It's a shame.
That's just the state of capitalism in our country.
It is the state of capitalism, and that begs the question, is capitalism moving in that direction? I had a little stroke there. Is capitalism moving...
And what you mean by stroke is he was actually touching himself.
I was actually doing a Stephen Hawking's impression. Capitalism. Is that where we're moving in the direction? Fuck you, economics.
Fuck you, economics. I like
See, you had your stroke now.
I had a little stroke too. Fuck you, economics. I like that. So what exactly is fuck you, economics?
I would assume that it would be irrational, purposely intentional money grabs from normal everyday people. Filtered through podcasts or prodcasts.
I don't know if we would ever be able to see the light of day of that, if companies would actually be bold enough. But I wish that they would. Like, I wish that, like, for example, cigarette companies would put out a ad in a magazine where it just says, "Fuck you, cigarettes now cost more." And you know what? But people who smoke are still going to buy cigarettes. And it's not even the states that raise the taxes. It's actually going to be the cigarette companies and be like, "Fuck you, we're charging you another $1. And guess what, bitch? You're addicted to smoking, and you're going to pay that extra $1."
I could see that happening.
And it's just going to be like Lexington Steel shooting a cum shot straight at you. 3-dimensional. Yeah, actually, there's a pair of like red and blue glasses that you put on to see the ad, and it's you just taking a load to the dome.
And they're just are they
being
going to
emasculated?
So he's going to sign a contract with a cigarette company to do that?
Yeah, Camel already signed him on.
I could see him as a Joe Camel.
Yeah,
wearing the sunglasses.
Joe
and the Lexington Camel.
Joe Lexington Camel. Camel toe.
My gosh.
We're actually both simultaneously having a stroke for the audiences at home.
And we're soldiering on because that's what we do. In our fit of existential necessity for podcasting. Sexistential.
It's a different kind of stroke, by the way, people. It's not the one that you think.
It's the good one.
I don't think a doctor's ever heard that. I think you've had a stroke. Yeah, but I think it's the good kind, though.
I think you know what I meant, but you're purposely sabotaging my joke. Why did you do, Brian? Why did you do that?
What?
Sabotage my joke?
I was too busy looking at your package,
and that's
I couldn't help it.
That's the problem, Brian.
Stop looking at me like that,
Brian. You need help.
Well, duh.
Brian, you gotta stop. You gotta stop smoking.
I do have to stop smoking.
And looking at my package.
Well, that I can't promise the second thing.
Well, small steps.
So
small 12 steps.
What else do we have to talk about? Because we're about close to an hour. We're about 56 minutes in. Any last words? Should we just play the theme again?
Sure. We could play the theme. Are we gonna think up new lyrics for it?
I feel like this podcast we didn't really cover too much.
No,
we didn't venture off.
We didn't prepare. That's what we didn't do.
But I think we were really hoping for some like spontaneous magic.
We were, and you can't always depend on it. And the door just opened.
I just want to say I made some broccoli soup. Do you want any? What?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I didn't know if you were hungry. Would you like some too?
Oh, I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
But you can come in and get it. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
This is the best podcast ever. So, we broadcast this podcast from my garage, and that was my mother asking if we wanted some broccoli soup.
And I said no, because
you're a fucking asshole.
I'm actually
fuck you, Pat.
No,
my mom makes really good broccoli soup.
I had those brownies earlier,
good for your colon.
Those were delicious.
It's good for your colon.
I'm sure it is. I do like broccoli. I've grown to like broccoli in the last few years.
I've grown to like you over time. I remember the first time I met you.
What? Remind me, what was the first time that we met?
The first time that I met you, I believe it was at your sister's birthday party in Anaheim.
Okay.
Circa maybe 2006 or something.
And you were wearing a Tagomago shirt.
I was wearing a Tagomago shirt.
And I think that's what started
2006 is probably too early. Maybe like 2008 or something.
Maybe 2008.
How long have we known each other?
4 years sounds about right.
But yeah, that was, I believe, the first time that I met you. And I think the only reason that you did talk to me was because I was wearing a Tagomago shirt.
And you weren't talking to too many people.
I wasn't talking to too many people.
And so we talked about Can.
Yeah.
For like an hour.
And I I'm having a stroke. No, I wasn't talking to too many people because your sister's friends are a bunch of lushes.
Lushes?
Yeah, lushes. It's a good word.
Define that for me.
A lush?
Yeah.
A lush is, I think, somebody who's just an insatiable drunk.
Oh. Yeah, that was a good term. Good term for the crowd there.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the first time I ever met you. And that's how we found common ground, was talking about Can. And that and garage rock and old black man blues from the 20s.
That is true. That is true. So
And-
the seeds of the podcast were planted in Anaheim.
Yeah, Anaheim, California. Anacrime, California. And what's really interesting, too, is that I'd met our mutual friend at Cal State, one that we actually all played in a band together with at one point.
That's true.
Called China Smoke. And I'd met our friend Sheldon at Cal State, and I actually didn't know that you guys had been friends for years.
That's
like you went to high school together. And so when Pat was telling me that he played in a band, a rock and roll band,
I did say that.
with our friend Sheldon that I didn't know knew Pat. It was a surprise when I talked to Sheldon like a week later, and Sheldon mentioned the name of his band, China Smoke, and that was, it just irked me. I'm like, oh, that's not exactly a very common name for a band.
Yeah.
And I'm like, does the guitar player does his name happen to be Pat? And he was blown away, and that's planted the seeds in me becoming the first and only lead bass player of China Smoke.
Of lead bassist of all time, I think.
Yeah. I next to Chick Corea, maybe.
Yeah. But that's jazz.
Yeah, fuck jazz.
Fuck jazz.
Nobody listens to jazz. I think shut up. I think if you listen to jazz, you're ignorant.
Ignorant of...
Because there's bigger things out there, like Green Day.
Oh, man. That's true.
And because they really talk about the real things out there. They talk about, how you're being held down by the government and, like, stuff like that.
Whereas jazz, they don't even have lyrics. They don't have anything to say.
Yeah.
Ornette Coleman, that guy had nothing to say.
And when there are, quote-unquote, lyrics, it's just Scooby-Doo-Bebop, and they're just making a bunch of,
stupid
noises with their mouth.
Yeah.
In other words, fuck jazz.
Fuck jazz.
Whoever listens to jazz is a fool. And Green Day is the greatest band that ever existed.
I can't get on board with that, but I will bandwagon it maybe at a later date.
Maybe next to Billy Corgan being a god.
I could see him being, if there was a movie somewhere down the line and they needed someone to play God, it would have to be like an alternative film, kind of like Singles or something. We're in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But I could see a movie like that in, say, like the future.
I think
Billy Corgan would play God.
I could totally see Kevin Smith casting Billy
Corgan
Corgan as God.
Yeah, he would direct it, and the dialogue would be short and snappy.
And then Billy Corgan would just talk about underground guerrilla wrestling.
Because that's some cool stuff to talk about.
Some cool stuff.
Suffering succotash.
He would just talk about like 90s cage matches between Undertaker and shit like that. Even though actually that's not underground enough.
No, it'd have to be like
It'd
death
have
matches.
to be like Mikey Whipwreck.
Yeah, death matches.
Versus
Flaming
Tommy
tables.
Dreamer, dog. Bitches at home, what do you know about that? Mikey Whipwreck and Tommy Dreamer, Heatwave 97, fucking sold out in the New Jersey fucking ballroom.
I actually don't know anything about it. Should we talk about
we
that?
just hit the Dennis Miller of underground wrestling quotient.
Esoteric
Yeah.
nonsense.
Esotericity.
Wow. Damn, that's a mouthful. But it's impressive mouthful.
That's a Lexington Steel.
Damn it. I knew you were going there. But I liked it. It was fun. It was fun that we went there. And I think if we can get very quiet for a second, I think we can hear the last click of the last browser window being closed.
Yeah. Do you think it's a good time to end?
No, it's never. Because remember, we talked about this yesterday. It's not. It's never going to end.
That's true.
Even if I've developed a theory that even if we do end it, even if we never record again, it's never ending because it's already been put into the air. It exists.
Well, I'm just saying we're over an hour right now.
Oh, so you're saying that we should press the stop button?
Yeah, and continue later.
We could do that.
Yeah.
Shall we sign off?
I think we should sign off. I think one more time we should mention that our sponsors are LegalZoom.com.
We're not getting any money from them, though.
We're getting respect, which means a lot to me. At least to me, it means a lot.
And that's unconfirmed respect that we're getting.
Yeah,
but that is a desirable currency.
Well, it's a product that I believe in.
Yeah, that's true. You have used it.
Once again, that's LegalZoom.com. The promo code is UMM. Enter in this promo code and you'll get 30% off death certificates, divorce,
last will and testaments.
You also get 30% off the debut album of Testament, Kirk Hammett's side project back in the day in the mid '80s.
It's not a bad deal.
Yeah, I know, and it all goes through LegalZoom. You actually get that in the mail with your death certificate of your loved one. Also, we are sponsored by optic-remix.com. That is opticremix.com. For all your sunglasses needs, buy any 2 pair of sunglasses and get a free pair of Sutras, our most popular sunglass. And shipping is free as always. And you just got to stay steezed up from the knees up because it's summertime, bitches.
It is summertime and it's hot. And we all look good in glasses.
Yeah, especially these. We got over 150 styles to choose from in various different colors. It's just fucking phenomenal.
I'll have to check it out.
You would have to check it out. Asshole. And then, do we have another sponsor?
We had a couple others. Zappos. Do they throw in anything free?
Well, there was the promo code for free shoes for life.
Free shoes for life. That's tons of free stuff.
I forget what it was. It was
Prodcast. Prodcast
you
was
get
the
free
promo
shoes for life. Let me tell you, people, you can only get this through the Pryant and Bat Prodcast Hourn. So just put in the
promo
code Prodcast. And then we're also brought to you by Behr Paint, that is BEHR, for all your outdoor painting needs, and Bootlegs of the Entitled Bad and Insane Comedian.
See you later.
All right. We love you all. Good night.